Hello, it's Yvonne from the Fabric Hut. Hey, this week we are going to be making this very cool block. It's called the Hovering Hawks. Um, we're going to use a couple of techniques that we've used in the past. We are going to be using half square triangles 4 at a time. We're going to make half square triangles 8 at a time. And then we're doing some nesting of seams and that sort of thing. So come join me as we do the classic Hovering Hawks block. Well, this is the block we're going to be making today. It's called the Hovering Hawks, and it is just a really fun little block. We are going to make ours 16 inches. No, sorry, let me take that back. We're going to make ours 12 inches today. So these are going to need to be 3-inch squares. And then you see we're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4 of them in one color frame. And then we're going to need 6 in another. So we are going to use 2 of the different techniques that we have learned so far. We're going to make these half square triangles 4 at a time using this fabric. We have our 3.5-inch squares that are going to be here and across the center. And then we have our larger blocks that we're going to make our 8.5-inch or our 8 at a time half-inch triangles. Okay, let me say that again. Our magic 8 half square triangles. Okay, I think I got it right that time. All right, so let's start with our magic 8. So we need our blocks to be 3.5 inches unfinished. So we're going to start with our finished size, which is 3 inches. We're going to times it by 2. So now we have 6 inches plus 1 3/4 inches for our seam allowances. So that leaves us with a block that is 7 3/4 inches. Now you can cut that at 8 inches, so you have a little wiggle room. I have it at 7 3/4. So remember, we first draw a diagonal line on the back of the lightest color fabric. Let's see if I can make it nice and dark so you can see it. And we're going to do it both directions. So we have a big old X on the back of these 2 squares. Okay, excuse me. And then we're going to draw another line, straight, horizontal, and vertical, going right through this center point. Okay, so I'm lining up the bottom of my ruler here, and we're going straight through that center point. We're going to turn it and do it one more time. Okay, this is our cutting line, not our sewing line. So there we go. We are all prepared to make our 8 at a time half square triangles. So I have set up my machine with my 1/4-inch foot without the guide because I'm sewing on top of my fabric versus along the edge. So I don't want that little guide to move my fabric on me. So I have got my needle set to a perfect 1/4 inch. And here I go. I'm just going to sew on either side or both sides of the diagonal lines. So there's one. You can just stop and move it over to the other side without cutting your thread if you want, or you can pull it out and cut your thread, whichever way works best for you. See, now I didn't do either. I broke my thread, so now I have to rethread my machine. So gotta be careful what you're doing. I got a little bit in too big of a hurry, and I pulled on it and snapped that thread. So that's okay. We like to thread our machines. It keeps my eye-hand coordination in good shape. Okay, and see if I can do it really quickly. It's always easier when nobody's watching, right? I try it right-handed, maybe that'll help. If you put your finger behind your needle, when you're threading it, you don't want it against the needle, but behind it, it kind of highlights the hole a little bit for you so you can see it a little bit better. Then go through. Now, as I'm pulling it through, I'm keeping that finger behind my needle so that my thread doesn't wrap around my needle. It just comes right on through like that. There we go. Tuck it between your feed dogs or your presser foot, and off we go again. Okay. Now this time I do definitely need to cut the thread because I'm going to turn this now and go on the other diagonal and get my 2 seams on this diagonal. I just love this technique because we're almost done now making 8 half square triangles. Okay, so this time I'm going to be a little more careful. I'm going to pull it out a little farther and go. That time I didn't break my thread. Okay. And just like that, we have 8 half square triangles. Doesn't look like it yet, but we do. Okay, bring up your little cutting mat. Now, if I were over at my big cutting mat, I would lay them all like this, and well, I guess it'll work on this one. I'm not going to move any of my pieces. I'm going to just start cutting. I'm going to cut my straights here. Then I'm going to, whoop, see, I did it again because I keep telling you this in every video, you really should cut standing up. Okay, turn it, cut this one. And I'm just turning my mat versus the fabric. And then you're going to go diagonally and cut these. Just like that. And if they get out of range now, you can adjust them. You know your line that you're cutting on. So if you want to separate them all and cut them one at a time, you certainly can. Whatever works for you. I have a sign in my room behind me that's on my cutting or my design wall that says "My quilt, my rules," because that's my philosophy. Patterns and blocks that you purchase, they are really a great way when you're learning how to quilt. And even when you're an experienced quilter, they're a great jumping off point. But there's no law that says you have to finish your quilt exactly like the pattern says. So if you come up with a better idea while you're doing it, go for it. It's your quilt. It can be your rules. Okay, now we're going to press them. Remember, we press to the dark. This is a bias seam here. So we need to be very careful not to stretch that seam. Give it a little finger press. I'm not pushing it too hard. And then you're going to hook your iron right in the corner and then go straight up against the bias, not on the bias, but perpendicular to the bias. Okay, here we go with another one. Put the iron in your hand. Give it a little finger press. Hook your point and go straight up. And that gives you a perfectly squared half square triangle. I will get the rest of these pressed, then we will measure them out and see if we need to do any trimming. Time to check my size. Now remember, I wanted this to be a 3-inch finish, so a 3.5 unfinished square. These are our are off squares, so they are the 3.5. And look at that. That's stitched out to be just exactly a 3.5 inch unfinished square. So all we really have to do is trim off our little dog ears here. Now we made 8, we only need 6. So I will take the other 2 and just put them aside. If I were making numerous blocks instead of just one today, I would be able to continue using them and divide however many I need by 8 to find out how many times I have to do this. So what do I got? I need 2 more. But see how nice and easy that is? If you had have started with a little bit larger square, you would have then squared these up, cut them down just a little bit. Let me show you how we would have done that. Let me find my, there we go. Okay, and what we would do is use our, I'm trying to find my little square here. Here it is. Okay, sorry about that. We would have taken our square and put the diagonal line right up the diagonal line of our half square triangle and lined it up on the 3.5 inch square right there and trimmed them off. But ours are exactly right, so we don't have to do that. We're going to set those aside. So we have all of our half square triangles that we need out of the Magic 8. This, we only need 4 that are these, so we're going to do the 4 at a time half square triangles. Who remembers how to do that? You put them right sides together and sew 1/4 inch all the way around. The formula for this one is the finished size of your square plus seam allowance, so that's an extra 1/2 inch. So our finished size is 3. Add in our 1/2 inch, so we have 3.5, and then we're going to divide that by 0.65, which gives us 5.6 something. So basically 5 3/4 inches, and you sew all the way around them like such. And then we're going to go back and trim or cut them in half diagonally 2 times. So we got that one. Line them back up. Now, do you remember the difference between a half square triangle 4 at a time and 2 at a time? These guys, the 4 at a time, we are going to end up with a biased edge on the outside edge of our triangle. This one right here, these are biased edges. See how they stretch? And our straight of grain is right here. On these, those are our straight of grain, and this is our bias. So we don't want to use this technique for corner squares. It's okay for squares that are going to be on the inside of the quilt block, which these are going to be on the inside versus on the very corners. So this is our straight of grain here. This is our bias. We don't want to stretch our bias, so we will go with the straight of grain when we press. Again, still towards our dark. Set our seam, go with the straight of grain. Get a little finger press to get it started. There we go. Little finger press. 2, set, and finger press, and open up. Okay, now remember we rounded up to 5 3/4. So these are going to be a little bit too large. Let's just look and see how much too large they are. Just a hair, but we want to trim them up because we want them to all be 3.5 inches. So we'll get our mat back out, get our ruler back out right here. Line up your 45-degree mark on your seam. If it's nice and square right here, you can go right into the 3.5 inch mark right there, keeping this directly up the seam, and cut it. Cut it 1, cut it 2. Now, if it were not perfectly straight on that corner, I would have, let's do it on this one. We'll pretend like this corner is not a square corner. It's a little bit off. I would square up this corner first. Make sure this is outside of the 3.5 inch line. Square up these 2 corners, then turn it around and line it up on the 3.5. And make sure that's right up the angle and trim it down. Now this doesn't seem like very much that you're trimming off, but in a whole quilt that will add up really quickly. That's a 1/16 of an inch, so you would only need 16 of these little blocks until you are a whole inch off on your measurements. So always take the time to double check your seams, double check your work, because accuracy in your cutting will make your block go together so much easier, and you will have so much nicer of a result when you're done. I think I missed my corner there. Trying to manipulate around the camera without bumping it. That's my excuse, and I'm sticking with it. Okay, last one. Line up on the line. Double check if you're square. I am. Oh, see, now this one is off even more. This one is an 1/8 of an inch off. It wouldn't take very many of these to really get my quilt out of balance, would it? Okay, and we are now ready to start building our block. Let me get all my little trash out of the way, and we will set it up. So this is our square. We're going to start with our light solids in the corner. So these are my lights. Put those out in the far corners. And then our dark blocks that are solid blocks, not piece blocks, are going to go right up in a diagonal pattern up the block like that. Okay. So that's the basis of my block. Now I have to figure out which way my triangles go. Okay, so these are my lighter triangles here and here. So they are going to butt up to the solid corner, just like that. Okay. I still have to have another block here, so I don't want these touching it yet. Okay, and then down here, they're going to turn the other direction and still touch my solid square in the corner. Getting there, look at that. Okay, here, what do we got here? We have the dark with the lighter color going towards the middle. So my constant color in this is this swirly blue. There we go. And keeping that little angle going up the center, just like that. There we go. What do you think? Okay, I'm going to bring this up here so we can look at it a little bit better. Because there's a couple ways you can go about this now. You have 16 pieces. So we could start here and flip this over and flip this over and over and over and do a row, and then do the same with these two over here, and then hook those together. So that would be one really quick and easy way to do it. Probably would be the way I would choose to do it, but I don't know for sure. Let's look at a couple other options. We could look at here. If we pull these apart, we actually have four patches. So we could sew our 4 patches together and then attach them. That would work too. It just what technique you enjoy using when you're building these up. For myself, I find it easiest to sew in rows and leave them webbed together so that I don't get anything turned. For instance, this block, if I were to get this one put together but then turn it, these triangles would be in the wrong place, and I'd have to take them out, and then I'd get frustrated. So I'm going to web mine together. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to fold it over, and fold it over, fold it over, and fold it over. And I'm going to sew these 4. That's going to be my first step. Move that out of the way. Move back over here to my sewing machine. Sorry about that. And let's get you a little bit closer. And realign you. There we go. Okay. We are going to bring the first one. I have put my 1/4 inch foot back on because you want to use a 1/4 inch foot. And just sew it right on down that side. I'm going to stop at the edge of it, bring up my next piece, make sure it's aligned nicely, and butt it right up to the previous one and let them sew together. Adjust this end and keep going. I know this is some real basic stuff, but we have some new people amongst us, and some of us who have been doing it a while, a reminder is not a bad thing. Okay. Now I just heard my machine make a funny noise. My thread broke, so I have to fix my thread. These are the things that just happen when you're sewing. Don't let yourself get too frustrated about it. Take a deep breath, enjoy your process, and just keep on going. See if I can do it. I can put my finger behind so I can see the hole. There we go. Keep my finger behind while I pull it through so that I don't get twisted around my needle. And I'm good to go. Now I'm going to start back up here so it stays webbed together. And just keep right on going down until I have all 4 of them. And the final one. When I get to the bottom of those 4, I'm actually going to stop, cut my threads, and lay them out again. And I'm going to just open it back out. Okay, gotta zoom out again. You can see what I'm doing. I'm gonna open them back out. So that I can see what my pattern is. Everything is still staying exactly where it was supposed to be. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to take the 3rd row and lay it right on top. I'm going to do 2 at a time. You can do them all at once and then pin them or clip them so that they stay together when you move it around. And that one goes like that. The reason I do the bottom ones with a pin or a clip is because as I bring it over here, they fall off the machine, then they don't stay aligned. Then I have to realign, and it just is easier if you just pin them. They're still not exactly aligned yet because I have to work with them and get them exactly right. Now this the one underneath right here, this one, that's my bias one. So we have to be real careful that it doesn't get stretched out of shape, or get it to pull in a little bit so it matches up with the one on top. That's where you have to be super careful, is with those bias ones. These two are not bias. These two are just fine. It's the little checkered ones that are bias. So we'll get this one. And now this is a bias square right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure it's lined up. And if it is not exactly matched, I'm either going to give it a little pull or I'm going to feed it in a little bit, because that bias just wants to stretch all out of whack, and we don't want that. Okay? And then we are down to our final row. Open this back out again. And you notice I haven't pressed anything. You can press as you go if you'd like, or you can wait and press them all at the end. I'm going to press them all at one time because right now I'm not having to match any seams up. I'm just bringing things over and sewing them. In a moment, we're going to have to figure out which way seams match best to nest our seams. Here's another bias one, so I'm going to be super careful with it. Now look at how this one has it's a little bit stretched out there from the pressing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed it in. Then I'm going to match them together and kind of pull the bottom one a little bit so that it stretches to the same length. It's not going to stretch near as far because it's not biased, but it will give a little, and it'll pull that little misaligned bias strip in just a little bit. Okay, and the final one. This one is actually a bias one too, so make sure it lines up nicely. And there we go. Now we have all of our seams for all of our rows sewn together, and they're hooked together to where nothing's going to get turned. Stop and take a quick look at it. Make sure everything is still the way you want it to be. Now, because we have angles on most of them, it's not going to be easy to make sure we're not pressing towards an angle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press all of the top row to the right, the next row to the left, to the right, to the left, and that will give me easy to nest seams. So let's do that. Bring up my pressing mat, and I'm going to turn this over and press from the back in this situation, just because it's a little bit easier to see what I'm doing. You can press from the front. Okay, so I'm going to press all of these this direction, like that. Okay, see, not all of them want to lay down really well, but it'll work. Move it up the board just a little bit, and this row I'm going to press that way. So start here and go this way. Be careful you don't catch the other seams and fold them up. Got my hand all up in your way there, but you couldn't see what I was doing. But see, top rows press this way, Next row's that way. This row is going to go to the right. So I'm going to go this way. Don't catch that seam. I'm giving a little tug to keep the pressure on it. There we go. And then the final row, back to the left again. See if I can do it this time without getting my hand all in your way. Okay, so now we should be able to nest those seams as we come to them and get a nice joins in this block. Okay, flip it back over so you can see it. Top row down onto the second row. Those threads hold it together so it nests just really nicely. You see how it's the one seam's this way, one seam's that way. Wiggle it with your fingers, get them to nest really nicely. I'm going to do it one at a time. I'm going to nest that first one, so up to it. And then I will adjust the next one because these are all the same size squares. They should be pretty close. And this is still hooked together there, so it can't be too far off. I'm going to figure with my finger. Feel that in. Okay, the other thing you can look at, okay, I'm going to take you for another zoom in ride. Whoop, a little too far. Oh my goodness. Are you getting car sick yet? Okay, there we go. See how this comes together right there? You have a seam coming this way, and then you have your diagonal seam coming up. This little spot right here where those two seams cross is the spot that you want your seam to meet. Now I'm going to come one stitch, one thread or so to the outside of that so that there's room for it to press open. But that's where I want my needle to hit as I'm coming down, because that's going to give me the perfect join. Okay, and then line up the last one and carry on. And we'll see how close I got that join. Are you ready for the truth be told, whether Ivonne can do it? Okay, look at right there, how all of those come right together because I hit right on that point. See that? Now, if I hadn't hit that point, you would see maybe a cutoff of this point, or you would see extra blue before it. So you want to make sure you get right on that little cross. Now this one is pressed the opposite way, so you're not going to be able to see that as well, but you can still feel it. And as long as you're using your accurate 1/4 of an inch, it'll hit that just perfectly for you. I'm being aware of this right here, not letting it get folded down. Get my hand underneath to adjust that bottom one, and this give it just a little bit of a pull if you need to. There we go. And the final one. Now remember, here's our triangle that's a bias. So we're going to be real careful not to stretch that one. We're going to just line it up really well. Okay, so we just have one more seam to go. Okay, on my final seam, I can see my little point right here really well, so I can aim right to it. Then, flip over, so stop and get it pushed in. There we go. Feel with your finger, get it all aligned. And we are just about done with our Hovering Hawks block. Now this is a really fun block to to make secondary patterns in your quilt with, because this diagonal line going through it just makes beautiful secondary designs. You can make all sorts of things. So look at there. All of our points are matching. I'm going to take this and press it. Now, we could, when we press this, we could spin seams and different things like that, but it's really not necessary on this block. So, okay, here we go. See, I didn't quite get this one right on that, lined up just perfectly. It's close. If it were less stark difference in these, I might let that go. But because you can really tell it, because I have such a light and such a dark, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back and I'm going to fix that real quick. What I'm going to do, I don't have to take the whole seam out, but I'm going to start about an inch on each side of that seam, cut every fourth stitch, fourth or fifth, and just get myself a little bit of wiggle room in there. Okay, and go to the other side, grab that thread and give it a little tug. There we go. And now I have opened up that seam about that far. I still have this little thread from my webbing. I'm going to clip that just so I can play better. And now I'm going to make sure that I get that lined up a whole lot better than I did the first time. It's a little stretched from picking that seam out, so you're going to just be aware of that and go carefully. Put it back in, and we'll see if I can get this just a little bit more accurate than it was before. And that's all it takes to fix one seam. I think the rest of my seams look pretty good. Oh, look at there. So much better. Still not exactly perfect, but so much better. I can live with that. All right? So there's our hovering hawks block. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you are practicing some of your techniques, your 4 at a time, your 8 at a times, trimming, all sorts of things going on in this block. So enjoy, go make another one, and happy sewing.